Hello, and welcome to my first video in a series of videos I plan on making cataloging the meters I've collected and put into my collection over the years and that I continue to collect. In this video, we'll go over the Ludlum Measurements Model 2. It is one of the older meter varieties that I collect, but still is very active in the hobbyist community. The Ludlum Measurements Model 2 has everything you can ask from a rate meter. A scale, and in most cases we go pretty high, or a multi-use scale that can also do dosage. The Ludlum Model 2 rate meter comes with a multi-precision selector switch, an external connector, an audio on-off to control your external speaker, a speed function that controls how fast the needle moves between fast or slow for a more precise reading, a reset which would drive the needle back to zero so you don't have to wait for the needle to drop, and a high voltage control. In this case, Ludlum Measurements Model 2 usually can go between 300 and 1800 volts. Now, this isn't perfect. Some of them will go between 4 and 1500 volts. You get what you get. The purpose of the selector switch is to control whether you can bat test, which is an integrated function to test whether your batteries are okay for service, and your multiple ranges, in this case 0.1, so your meter will read 0 to 500, 0.01, my apologies, 0.1, 0 to 500, times 1, 0 to 5,000, and times 10, 0 to 50,000. These three ranges are standard on most Ludlum Measurements Model 2s. You can find ones with variations in this, and very rarely you find one that has times 1, times 10, and times 100, which opens up more range. Most come standard with a Bnc connector, so your external, but they all have in common an external battery well. This was new for the time, since batteries usually had to be placed on the inside of the meter, where you open up the can and put batteries inside. This exposes the electronics to potential hazards from battery leakage. The external battery well not only made it easier to operate, but also made it much more easier in the long run if a battery leaks. You can get a few different styles of Model 2s. Most Model 2s you will find will be of either these two styles. And not much variation is there besides how the speaker is designed, occasionally how the scale looks, and pretty much that's it. Unless this one is missing the can latches. In this case, you have two screws on the bottom that opens the can. A much older design, which is okay because the batteries aren't stored on the inside. As I said, most Ludlum Measurements Model 2s come with a Bnc connector. This is my preferred connector of choice, but you will find variants in this, like Type-C connectors, which are just a larger Bnc, and most modern Ludlum equipment run. You can find SHV and MHV, but SHV was something that usually the owner had to modify into the meter on a later date. MHV was just coming into the market on these things, and you more find them on the newer style Ludlum Model 2s. It all depended on what the end user wanted. Let's do an operation example. In this case, switch to bat test, and the needle goes up to bat. We can scale it down and go to times 0.1, And now the meter is detecting via a Geiger tube. The audio on-off does just that. Fast and slow will change the rate the needle moves, and it gives a more accurate reading. If we take a test source, in this case, a Spectrum Technics cesium-137 source, you can see we easily peg the needle on ×1, so we can scale up and get a better reading. But the needle is still very bouncy, so we can drop it to slow, and it'll move slower and give us a more precise reading. There's not much to these meters compared to modern ones, but they share the very resemblance to what started it all in the rate meter market. And they're a very good starter meter. You can usually find them for relatively cheap, and with that, they usually last very well. It's not a bad meter to buy as your first one, so you can use as a multi-purpose rate meter and tell if you really want to advance from there. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you on the next video.